double-digit growth in the three major commodities after the USDA report with unchanged numbers. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Jerry, so you are going to comment us today about these numbers that didn't bring any surprise.
No, there really wasn't any dramatic differences. Maybe there's some disappointment in the fact that the corn carryover stayed unchanged, but they weren't looking for a big change. And actually, if you wanted to find anything, was bearish. The wheat was kind of negative, but the market came in with some attitudes here about the fact that the Black Sea situation, the more and more atrocities that we had this week from Russia, and that things in that situation weren't going to end up changing very quickly here. Looks like the Russians are backing up so they can end up being involved a lot more in the eastern part of Ukraine. And then, weather in the U.S. And about how dry it is in the western U.S. and the western plains, and also what could happen in South America.
Yeah, so how do you see this double-digit growth for?
Well, it was a combination of some technicals, and then, as I said, I think the markets were really kind of zeroing in on some of these things, particularly today. The soybean number today, by the way, was a positive number. It was the second time we've really taken that down in a big way. It was all. It's interesting in the fact that it was all exports, and there wasn't any real adjustments going on in crush. Now they did make some adjustments on seed usage. They brought that up 4 billion, and they decreased the residual accordingly at this point. And so, but 260 is definitely a lot different than 350, like it was a couple months ago. On the corn side of things, the factors in that one was kind of interesting. They did decrease the Ukrainian exports here again by I think 3.5, 4 million, and that's the second time they've done that. But interestingly enough, there's still this attitude that maybe Brazil is going to end up having a decent crop down there, or even a higher one. They did increase the Brazilian number by 2 million metric tons from 114 to 116. But the last 3 or 4 weeks have been pretty dry in Mato Grosso. And it's below normal, at least for this time of year. And particularly with this year's crop pollination really being zeroed in at the end of this month. Last year it was a lot further in later. It was into May, and we'd already started to see the seasonal monsoon decline. And I think that's another feature everybody's worried about, with La Nina still being pretty prominent out there in the Pacific Ocean. So you put that together, on the corn side at least, I think that people are anticipating some reduction in the 1.4 number. And it's been kind of interesting that the Chinese have been holding their buying activity here. They did buy a 1.1 million U.S. corn, but they still have a whole bunch of corn out there that they have bought, and I expect they're going to see it at the same price they bought it before the Black Sea issue, and that they haven't really bought a lot. Now, I've heard some rumors that they might be a buyer, and it didn't showed up here today, but we'll see if that is the case. That all being said, we're a billion bushel carryover stock is kind of the magic number. If we took this thing down on the old crop down to a couple hundred million, down there at 1.2, definitely would be a lot different, because the key thing is we still are going to be dealing with this 89 million planted number for the 2022 year. I don't know if that's going to be the final plantings, but it's definitely going to make things quite interesting if we tighten up some old crop stocks here on corn, and even a little bit more on beans.
And how big do you think are the lockdowns in China in the market? How big do you think the impact is?
Well, the lockdowns have definitely made things interesting. Shanghai, uh, that's the biggest lockdown we've had to this point, and psychologically, it's there. I guess the interesting twist on it is that you still have a lot of people over there that need something to eat. And that I don't know if they have Uber Eats over there or not. Maybe they can get a delivery on some of this stuff, but on food from there. But in general, here the market activity here is going to end up, at least at this point, it's been a little conservative on their demand side of things. One thing that's really kind of hurt things and definitely put a little less corn demand over there has been the very weak pork prices. We've had more numbers than they've had, and then maybe this lockdown situation has added to it, in that where there has been less pork, and pork is their number one meat over there, by the way. Beef is even, I think, behind chicken at this point in a big way. So at this point, the pork demand has been sluggish, and it's probably a part of the reason why that the Chinese buyers have been a little reluctant, because there isn't much uh, money in between there on their purchases versus the meat that they are producing at this point. So that lockdown is it's a background situation on Chinese corn demand, but I think there's still going to be the reality that they're going to have a difficult time to get things out of Ukraine here for corn. I know the ag minister over there is pretty optimistic they're going to have uh, a better crop than we started out with at 40 and 50% down there. He's optimistic, only seeing a 20% decline, but I guess there's a lot of people would like to see a little better prospects and better ideas about how that's going to happen before they're going to jump on board for a 20% decline.
There's talk about the possible recession in
Oh,
Europe and then possibly in the United States.
yes, yeah. Well, that's a recession is the fear of any time that we increase our interest rates to combat inflation, and I don't disagree. That's a possible scenario down the road here. I do not see that to be a real impact over the next well, over the next 8 to 9 months until 2023. Maybe there'll be some final impact of that. Maybe it'll have some impact on Christmas buying that could put some things in. But the interesting strength in employment and more dollars coming in to people, and that, and it seems like that even to this week there was a note there, there's some comments about Walmart jacking up their price for drivers of their trucks to over $100,000 salary. That's there's plenty of money out here. I guess the key thing is, will it the inflation scenario, this is going to be a difficult scenario, but I don't know that it's going to all of a sudden create ourselves a Fed that's going to end up driving us into recession here in the next 6 to 9 months.
And are you seeing around your area some crop conditions in Illinois?
Well, anything east of the Mississippi here, interestingly enough, not that there's a lot of stuff grown in Chicago, as we all know, but downstate's been kind of the same phenomena. Uh, since we started the 1st of April, this last 9 days, we've had some measure of rain in the rain gauge here in the northern part of Illinois and Chicago and specifically. And it's been cold and overcast. We're going to finally warm up into the 60s next week, or this coming week. And in that situation, I think that is a feature that is important to maybe starting to get a shot. But now all of a sudden we're talking about the mid of April here coming up quickly, and I'd have to say that's going to make people also nervous that we're not getting this crop in. And that I know that in many cases and I've seen it many times that we still can have a good crop if it's planted in May, but producers these days with these big outfits, big rigs and that planting, that's another feature why we're not seeing as much early planting as we used to have in the days, because those 2016 to 24 row planters and big equipment to pull it and all that kind of stuff. It's you don't want to get those rigs stuck in the mud. So there's a lot more caution about running out there and getting the little stuff in the ground. I can go and I can go for a week at a time, that's what I want to do instead of go out there and get stuck after a day. So that's the other twist of this thing. And it's interesting. We're having a problem. I just mentioned earlier here with dryness in the Western Corn Belt, out in Nebraska and Colorado and the Dakotas and down in Kansas and that. And at the same time, we're having this pretty kind of cool and wet scenario here. And I actually, in the current forecast, that's not really going to disappear much, even in the next 10 days or more. So that's going to put us into the late April for sure. And so that's going to make things interesting and add another flavor to this thing, another reason to support corn and soybean prices at this point. But today's combination of no big negative scenarios in the numbers and in the forecast for rain here and dryness in Brazil has really kind of helped push this market up impressively. We are up here near the highs in corn and not too far away in beans.
And what do you expect from next week?
I kind of feel like we might see a little choppiness early in the week because we've had such a strong week this week, but I'm anticipating the fact that the moisture forecasts that are out there for the end of next week are going to keep things kind of held together. And that, I don't know if we're going to make new highs at this point, because it's a little early to convince everybody that we're in total disaster here on the U.S. plantings. But at the same time, I see generally good support on setbacks, and I don't know, we'll have to see what happens in the Black Sea. That has been a very up and down world over there as to what impact that will have on their crops and output. But this week's, or today's, I should say, USDA report didn't end up providing any huge supply of new U.S. and world supplies at this point. So we're still kind of nervous out here, worrying about how much output we're going to have for U.S. and world trade.
Thank you very much, sir.
Have a good day.